Good morning. My name is Constance Thompson. I'm the EAP counselor for the City of Houston Employee Assistance Program. Today we're going to be talking about preventing workplace violence, and then Tony will be talking about the Administrative Policy 3-21. Back in 1970, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration enacted an act that says all employers should provide a safe working environment for the employees of that organization. The environment should be free from hazards that may cause serious injury, it may cause physical harm, or even death. So the City of Houston has put some teeth into what the efforts have been what they've been trying to do already to make sure that all of our work environments are safe, employees are safe. The first, major violence in the workplace happened back in the early 80s in Edmond, Oklahoma, where a post office worker went berserk, killed almost 54 people and injured 14. So workplace violence has been around for a while. Remember Sandy Hook, Columbine, 9/11, Ben Taub lately, workplace violence in Oakland where a supervisor was beheaded. So workplace violence is here. And so we need to learn how to prevent workplace violence and what are the kinds of things that we can do to make sure that all employees are safe in the City of Houston. A violent workplace is an unsafe workplace. So therefore, we're going to do this training session in two parts. I'm going to do preventing workplace violence, and then Tony will be doing the Administrative Policy 3-21. Let's look at our learning objectives for today. First of all, we're going to define workplace violence. We're going to identify the prohibited conduct in the workplace. We want to make sure that your awareness is increased of the behaviors that frequently precedes the acts of violence. We want to prepare all City of Houston employees to recognize and respond appropriately to acts of workplace violence. And the last thing, one of the learning objectives is that we want to ensure a safe workplace by reducing the potential for workplace violence. Workplace violence is a serious problem. Look at the statistics. Workplace homicide is the 4th leading cause of death in the workplace. Nearly 2 workers are murdered each day in the U.S. And out of the 2 people who are murdered each day, 15% of those are supervisors and managers. In addition, an estimated 1 million workers are assaulted annually in the workplace. It's the 2nd leading cause of death for women and the 4th leading cause of death for men. Each year, 2 million American workers are victims of violence at work, ranging from intimidated threats to homicide. In about 11% of the workplace homicides, the offender was a coworker, a former coworker, or a customer. And we've found in research that most coworkers or former workers who come back to work are disgruntled for some reason when they leave the organization, so they come back for revenge. And about 3/4 of all workplace violence was committed by unarmed offenders, but more than 80% of the workplace homicides were committed with firearms. Now let's look at the definition for workplace violence. Workplace violence is an incident of a violent action, a violent behavior, or a threat of violent behavior in the employment setting. So it's a violent action, a violent behavior, or a threat of a violent behavior. Workplace violence can cause substantial risk to an organization, the City of Houston, which is our organization, because what happens is that it damages the resources and capabilities of the city when there's a major crisis in workplace violence. The old normal has to become the new normal. Prohibited conduct in the workplace. And you will find these when you review the AP 3-21, the prohibited conduct is there as well as other behaviors. Arson, assaults, or threatening behaviors, battery, fighting and physical assaults, harassment, homicide, stalking, intimidating communications, and verbal abuse. These are just some of the prohibited behaviors in the workplace. A common type of workplace violence is a person under restraining order visiting the workplace. And we were training supervisors first up until January, and then we're going to move to the employees. So we will be telling employees, and we're letting you know that if there is a restraining order for someone against someone that's an employee in your workplace, we want to make sure that the employees let you know that, because many times relatives, significant others, friends may visit the workplace. You need to know if there's a restraining order against those people, because it can be inside, it could be a coworker, a former coworker, it could be a relative, it could be people you know or don't know, and it can occur inside or outside of the workplace. There are types of workplace violence. There are 4 different types, and as I talk about these types, I want you to reflect back to see where you are most vulnerable for each one of these types. Some of them may not apply to you, or all may apply to you, but these are 4 different types. The first type is a criminal intent. That's the first type. Violent acts by criminals who have no other connection with the workplace but to enter to commit a robbery or other crimes. For example, there was a crime, workplace violence back in Denny's last year. If you were sitting in Denny's, then you are impacted by that violence. It wasn't your workplace, but you're impacted. If there's a robbery at a jewelry store, smash and grab, and you are conducting business in the jewelry store, you are impacted by the violence in that workplace. The second type of customer-client is customer-client. This is a violent act directed at employees by customers or client. The person who is the perpetrator is visiting the workplace and commit a violent act while they're there. That's customer-client. We provide services to many people in the city of Houston, so that could be your workplace. If you, for example, in the water division, and you are outside working with the meter, the customer is inside, the homeowner comes out, it could cause violence. That day, that is considered your workplace. Let me give you examples of customer-client types of violence. One is in psychological hospitals, where we know that there are people who have mentally ill problems. They're there. Some of them are violent, so they commit a violent act while a worker is working with them. The second type would be a cab driver, a taxi driver. They're providing a service, and the person that they're providing the service to become violent. We talk about school shootings that are like client-customer, when a former student walks in, or a neighbor comes in, or a disgruntled parent who is a customer at that school. Type 3 is employee on employee, where violence against coworkers, supervisors, or managers are by current or former employee. That's employee-employee. Type 4 is a personal relationship, where violence in the workplace by someone who does not work there but has a personal relationship with an employee. This is usually domestic violence. We always say domestic violence does not stay home. It can come to work and overflow into work. It doesn't have to always be a significant other, a partner, or a spouse. It can be a relative that's committing domestic violence who lives with that person or something like that. So these are the 4 types of violence, and we want you to think about where you would fit into that violence. Other types of workplace violence is violence at work also may be psychological. Use of symbols or gestures like the pointing of a gun, the shooting of a gun, that can be construed as workplace violence if you are threatening somebody with the gun with the finger or whatever. And then it is the stabbing of someone in the chest, or cutting of the wrist, or beheading someone. That type of conduct is prohibited because it's a gesture that has threatening violence with it. And so we want you to be sure to understand the City of Houston's definition of workplace violence and understand the provisions of the policy AP 3-21. Let's look at the targeted violence process. A perpetrator who's getting ready to commit a violent act, it can be overt or covert. It could be openly or it could be in secret that they're going to do that. And prior to the attack, these are the steps that they take. They consider, they plan, they prepare. They usually share with a third party, and they move from ideas to actions. So they're very serious about that. When someone is targeted to be a violent act, they will consider, they plan, they prepare, and when they share with the third party, usually when the violent act occurs, the third party will say, I didn't think he or she was going to go through with that threat. So we're telling employees, we're telling you, if you hear something, do something about it. And then they move from ideas to actions. Let's look at the pathway of the blueprint to workplace violence. We talked about the perpetrator, what they do, they plan, they consider, they share, and then their ideas turn to actions. Let's look at it. There's a grievance here. It's a complaint. The perpetrator feels that he or she has a complaint and it has not been addressed. Then they move to violent ideation. Violent ideations is like suicide ideation. You plan what you're getting ready to do. For example, for people, and suicide is also in the policy, that's a conduct that is serious, it's a violent act. So people who have suicide ideations, they plan and think about how they could commit the suicide. Are they going to cut their neck? Are they going to sit in the garage with the motor running? Are they going to do something to the gas meter to make sure that it blows up? Are they going to cut their wrist? They plan. And usually when they plan, they move from ideas to the violent action. So be it with a perpetrator. Research and plan an attack is the next step on this blueprint, and a person who's going to become violent. When they research, they investigate. They're trying to find out what, where, who, and when I'm going to get revenge against because of my grievance, my complaint. Nobody's doing anything about the complaint I brought to my supervisor or manager, and so I'm going to make sure that I take care of this myself. I've had it up to here, I'm going to do something about this. So they start planning, investigating, and planning the attack. When you start planning the attack, you start going to the sources where you can find out about how to make a bomb. How much ammunition do you need? What kind of weapon are you going to use? How many do you need? The place where I'm going to attack, how many people are there at 8 o'clock? Will I have more impact if I go at noon during lunchtime? Or is it better at 3 o'clock p.m.? That's what they planning and research and attack is in a perpetrator. The next one is the pre-attack preparation, where they are actually very aggressive. They start packing things up, they're counting what they need, they get their vest. And most people who have a violent tendency, they usually know that if the police is called at the scene, that they're going to get killed. So the only reason most times that they put a vest on, a protective vest for their chest, to make sure that they finish the act. Because most people who are like that tend to think, it doesn't matter anymore to me. I'm going to do what I need to do no matter what. So they don't wear the vest most times to protect themselves. They wear it so they can be alive longer to commit the act. So the pre-attack preparation plans, they start gathering up everything that they need. Where I'm going to park, how I'm going to get through the building if that's not a detector in there, what am I going to do? And then they start the probing and breaches stage. Probing means they start exploring more. They're very serious about this. And then with the breaches, they start violating the law. You notice that the decision was made, and now that perpetrator has escalated the behavior to the attack, the final act. That can happen in the city of Houston, so we want to have plans in place to at least diminish the at-risk for potential violence or serious injury. So we need to learn how to de-escalate the situation if it happens. So every division should have a plan, emergency plan in place if there's a major crisis as far as violence is concerned. It's too late to plan afterwards, so all of you think about what it is you have in place already in case there's a plan. So we want to de-escalate and Tony and I will be talking about that later. Dealing with workplace violence. No one can predict when a violent act will occur, but steps can be taken to increase the person's safety and reduce the risk to the organization. That's the plan we were talking about. And everyone has a role, not just managers and supervisors. And we will tell the employees, like I said before, if you see something, tell somebody or do something about it. You're not the only people who have a role in making sure that violence is the violence is reduced, the risk of it is reduced in the workplace. There's no typical profile of a person like to become violent, but there are signs and symptoms that will let you know that someone has the potential to become violent. And I'm going to be talking about behavior warning signs. There are 3 different types of signs to look for: behavior warning signs, physical warning signs, and verbal warning signs. So we're going to start out with the behavior warning signs. I like to call people who are potentially at risk of becoming violent or a perpetrator as at risk. So an at-risk employee may demonstrate a pattern of being intolerant of criticism and suspicious of coworkers. That's one warning sign. You've worked with this employee and you know that it's time for the hear progress evaluation discussion, and as you are discussing with that person, they become quick to anger, demonstrate uncontrollable temper. They're prone to arguing, intimidating behavior, or carrying a grudge. Those are some other behavior warning signs. But you notice now this person's behavior has changed. It's very good to know your employees, know their temperament, know their demeanor. And I always said know the way that they're bent, because we're all different. We have different personalities. And if you know your employees, you will know them very, very well. You'll know if there's been a change in the pattern of their behavior. For example, I'm usually a very cool, calm, and collected person. So if I'm one of your employees and you see that Connie is no longer cool, calm, or collected, then you need to start asking questions or having a gentle conference with me. Usually you're cool, calm, and collected, Constance, and now I see that that's changed. What's up? How can I assist you? That's the way to find out what's going on in a very calm fashion, to show that you care from the heart about what's going on with that individual. That's the reason it's very important to know your employees' demeanor, their temperament, how they act in different situations. Some other behavior warning signs says that's some people who isolate themselves with little involvement with coworkers. I know there's some people who are loners. They tend to do that. They come to work, do their 8-hour day, and they go home. They have no contact except the work hour with the city family. Then there are people who have fascination with weapons or related literature. We know that a gun is prohibited on city property. That's a code for that, and Tony will talk about that. But if you find someone one day in the lounge or in the staff room or at their car, at their truck, showing off their guns and passing out literature, that's a warning sign. Or if you see them bring the gun on the inside, waving it, when you think that's a warning sign, that something is about to happen. So those kinds of things, and I know we have a lot of gun lovers. It's the season for hunting, but because weapons are prohibited on the city property, a warning sign is that someone breaks their law, that policy, and bring a gun on campus. Then there's desperation over a disciplinary action, especially termination. People don't tend to think that they have to be accountable for their actions. Sometimes they think this, and they perceive you as the person who's making them lose their job, when actually they also should be held accountable for their work. And then they have delusions, unshakable, strong delusions, false beliefs about others in the workplace, especially the supervisor. Some other behavior warning signs, they have beliefs that managers, supervisors have ignored their complaints. They've complained, and they've complained. And they perceive that you're not doing anything about it, but that may not be so. You know, some things are confidential, that you are investigating, and you're still in your investigative mode, and you have not gotten back with them. They don't know that, so they take it into consideration to think, is their perception that you're not doing anything about their complaints. People feel that they have not been dealt with fairly, and they will voice that opinion to you if they feel that way. They have beliefs and talents and that their skills and ability are much greater than what others perceive. They've applied for, they say, 15 jobs in that department, and never been considered for a promotion. Well, when they come to the EAP office, we want to look at, bring your resume with you. Let's look at your resume. Let's strengthen your resume. Let's look at your skills and ability. How can you highlight your skills and ability? Maybe you'll get that job that you've been applying for. So we help them do that, and there have been people who've actually gotten their promotion, got that job that they wanted because they strengthened their resume. Or we tend to, let's look at your skills and abilities. Maybe that job is not a good fit for you. Look at your skills and your abilities. They feel like they've been ridiculed or degraded by coworkers. Let's say you're having a staff meeting and a worker walks in, an employee walks in, and one of their coworkers says something very degrading to them, and it's not addressed at that time. Then everybody starts laughing, and they do it over and over again. They feel like they've been treated unfairly, unjustly, and nobody's helping them. People get upset because they see that as bullying behavior. We've been given an example of a worker sitting in the middle of a truck, and the driver, the employee's coworker, and the passenger coworker are pushing him back and forth in the truck, pushing him back and forth. And he said to me, when he came to the office to talk about it, I'm up to here with that kind of behavior. I'm not going to tolerate that anymore. That's a threat. So we talk about that threat, and because of ethical standards that I have because of my license, I have a duty to warn supervisors. So when someone comes to my office, and I tell them at the beginning of this session, if you tell me you're going to harm yourself, if you tell me you're going to hurt or harm somebody else, I must reveal that. Other than that, it's very confidential. So let's call your supervisor and talk about your complaint that you have and see if we can resolve this today. So the person okayed me to do that. It was okay for me to do that. I called the supervisor. The supervisor misunderstood what was going on, and so that was taking care of that. Something very, very simple to do. So we try to work with our clients to come to make sure that we relieve the situations that they may have in their lives. A known history of psychological problems, impulsive behaviors, or a history of antisocial or violent behaviors is a behavior warning sign. There are people who just have problems. And we know that if we look at our own lives and our everyday lives, how we could have some personal tragedies in our life, grief, not enough money, financial struggles, marital problems, challenging behaviors with the children. Those kinds of issues don't always stay home. They overflow into the workplace. And then when they get to work, they're overwhelmed with work. So they have the private problems, personal problems, and the work problems put together. They have not learned how to cope, do not know the strategies that they can use to overcome those kinds of issues, on how to be healthier, about looking how to address those. So they become psychologically, unemotionally stable. Some people can, and there are some people who can handle both, the personal issues and the job issues also. So we work with people who have those kinds of problems. Now, these are physical warning signs. Now, with the physical warning signs, if you see someone with a clenched fist or jaw, that's a sign that they're angry. If you think about what you do, what kind of responses you do when you're angry, what do you do? Think about that for a minute. They usually have exaggerated gestures. They're all wild with it. They're waving their arms. They're talking real loud, heavy perspiration. They're sweating, pace and restlessness and repetitive movement on the floor. This is what they're doing. Shallow, rapid breathing. They're trembling or they're shaking. Those are signs, verbal, physical abuse signs. And one other sign is that they violate your personal space. So if I walk to this, I am an employee and you're the supervisor, and I walk to you with my arms, with my hands clenched and my jaws tight, do you think I'm getting ready to hug or kiss you? No, I'm not. That's not a sign. It's a physical warning sign that I may become violent. Now, I'm getting closer and closer. Am I making you uncomfortable? Mm-hmm. Some people, when you get in their personal space, it makes them uncomfortable. And so you have to say gently that when someone gets too close to you, you have to say, sir or ma'am, I'm uncomfortable with people, not just the employees in front of your face. You have to say, I'm very uncomfortable with you in being in my personal space, and I'm sure you may feel the same way. So what I'm getting ready to do, I'm getting ready to back up a little bit. so that I can give you space between you and I so that we can talk. Now, some people, it doesn't bother them for people to get close to them. Usually it could be here, it could be here. And with me, it doesn't bother me if someone's very close to me because I'm the touchy, feely kind of person. So it doesn't bother me. But it's okay to say you're in my personal space. I'm going to back up a little bit. Now, if you don't say that and you just back up, what are they going to do? They're going to come forward. You back up again. Before you know it, you two are out the door. He comes forward. You back up. He comes forward again. So it's okay to say that. So if your personal space is violated, that is a physical warning sign. Now, Tony and I are going to demonstrate something. This is a plan if someone you're working with is potentially violent. For example, I'm going to be the supervisor, and Tony's going to be the employee. Tony and I are talking, and maybe the confrontation becomes a confrontation very serious. A violent action could occur. And so I'm closer to Tony. What could Tony do to me as I'm standing here? He could hit me, knock me out, and I wake up 3 days later. I don't want that to happen to me. So when you're talking to someone who has the potential or at risk of becoming violent, you need to get to them at a right angle like this, where you're on the side of them as you talk to them. You're on the side like this, talking to them. So if Tony decided to hit me, if I'm a good ducker, then I can duck. Or if I can't duck, I sure can run fast. So you have to make sure you do that with someone. Make sure that you're at a right angle. Another thing you need to have a plan for is that if you're having a conversation with an employee, and you sit in your office, it may be a time you may have a witness there with you, another manager, supervisor, whatever, and it could be that you and the employee are alone. You should be closest to the door, not the employee, because if you need to get out of there, you need to be close to the door. If the employee is in front of the door, what will happen? They'll block the door and you can't get out. And let me tell you, we have to always think about our personal safety in situations that may become violent. So if you can't, you need to learn how to get out fast if you have to. It's okay to run, get to retrieve and get to a place where you can see that you have personal safety, because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of dead heroes. I prefer to be an alive hero. So I have no problem running if I need to protect my personal safety or retrieve so I can get to a safe place. So those are physical warning signs. Verbal warning signs, repeated threats or having a history of making threats. This is a threat. The city of Houston's blood's going to be on my hands. I'm going to hurt somebody. They may have your business card flashing and they say, this person hasn't heard the last of me. Now, they're flashing your card, so they're talking about whom? Yes. Change in voice, loud talking or chanting. I am projecting now so that you can hear me. But if I start talking real loud like this, saying that I am tired of this, I'm tired of you being my manager, I want to move, you have not felt or done anything about my complaints, I am loud talking, but now I'm projecting. So you know the difference. Use of abusive language. Sympathizing with perpetrators of workplace violence reported in the media. For example, a month ago, a supervisor was beheaded by an employee. If you find one of your workers saying this, hey, I can see why you did it, that's a warning sign. Or he or she says, you have to see things from his perspective, that's a warning sign. People who have no empathy or sympathy for anybody, those are people who are at risk for becoming potentially violent because they think that way. It's okay to have a violent nature. That's what they're saying. Prevention do's and don'ts. I would not go over all of them, but they're there. Do take threats of workplace violence seriously. We encourage you to do that because any small incident could actually mushroom into a large incident. And it wouldn't have gotten that big if we addressed it early on. Do follow safety prevention guidelines in the City of Houston's policy AP 3-21, and do make a mental assessment of a potentially violent situation. You have to have a plan. If you see something about to happen, you have to have a plan. What are you going to do? You're standing there and an employee's right up on you, violating your personal space. You have to say, then this lady and this man is walking up on me. I need to do something about this. You need to get it under control. That's your responsibility to do that. I always give the example that a few years ago, and it may be happening now, where there's a scam where people will hit you from behind in your automobile as you're driving, and it would be at night. Our first reaction is to get out to check out the damage. I have a plan for my personal safety. I'm not going to get out and check it. I will just continue to drive because that's what I pay insurance for. You know, a safety plan for your personal self, for yourself, is not to go to the ATM alone or late at night, something like that. That's a personal plan. So just as we have personal plans for ourselves, we need to have some type of safety plan for your division. What are you going to do? And usually you need to, if there's something happen, you need to clear everybody out, get them out of the way, so make sure that they're safe. And you need to tell people the plan so they know what they're supposed to do. You should project calmness. If two people are arguing, the argument's going to escalate. Someone has got to be calm in the situation. As hard as it may be, someone's got to be calm. And it's our professional responsibility to be the calm one, not the one that's not projecting calmness. Choose to be the one who says no to disrespect, ethnic slurs, and degrading behaviors toward others. And do make sure that you provide awareness to your employees about the workplace violence and the basis of prevention, what it is they can do to keep themselves safe. Do avoid horseplay at work, because what happens sometimes, a horseplay turns into an argument. Someone gets angry about the horseplay. And this is why it's prohibited in many workplaces, and it's against the law in federal workplaces, horseplay. Do report offensive behavior or intimidating behaviors in the workplace toward others. If you're worried about an employee or a coworker, talk to someone you trust to discuss your concerns. Please do call the Employee Assistance Program. We're able there to consult with you. Do learn how to recognize, avoid, or safely diffuse potentially violent situations, and do follow the appropriate process regarding concerns you have about safety or security. Do report the incident in writing, immediately in writing, and if you're unsure what to do, follow the instructions set out in AP 3-21. Don't dismiss threats of violence as venting or blowing off steam. People who blow off steam on a regular basis or are always venting about something, you're not sure about what's going on, have a talk with them. That's considered threatening behavior. And don't say it can't happen here. I'm sure Sandy Hook said that. I'm sure the people in the Twin Towers say it can't happen here in New York. I'm sure that the Bentop Hospital may have said it can't happen here. We hope it doesn't happen, but the potential is there for it to happen, so we want to be ready. It's called preparedness. We want to make sure that we're ready if it does. Again, if there's a restraining order, please tell them to let you know about it, because this could protect you and others. And like fire safety, know your workplace, know the exits, know where the hallway leads. Be sure, and hallways lead, be sure you do that. Now, if you become a victim, we hope this doesn't happen, you can often become traumatic. And if you're a victim of the workplace violence, you can become traumatized. We want to make sure that you get the help that you need. Even though that you're not injured, you may still experience a normal but traumatic psychological response to the incident. If you were in the jewelry store in a smash and grab, and somebody came in and robbed the jewelry store, you would be traumatized by that. So please, we implore you to call the Employee Assistance Program, the EAP office, if you need us. We can do CISM, which is Critical Incident Management, to help employees to get back to the new normal, because the old normal will fade away. It would be the new normal. We're there to assist you. What can your EAP do? We can provide confidential counseling services, consultation, and if it's something that's out of our reach, we're able to refer the employee to a community resource. Now, EAP, we have in the city of Houston, no formal referral process. So, but you can strongly encourage employees to visit with us. That's what we're there for. We want to make sure that our employees are socially, physically, and psychologically healthy. We want to make sure that that happens for you. 3 takeaways today. We want you to recognize, we want you to respond, and we want you to intervene. Recognize what are the internal risk factors for violence in your workplace. Recognize where are the internal or external risk factors in your workplace. For example, external. Is your department in a high crime area? And if so, what is it that you're doing about it? Is there a fence up? Is there security there? Is the area well lit? Are the people who open up your facility by themselves in the morning or when they leave late in the evening? Those are external at-risk factors. Internal is that there are some kinds of issues or prohibited conduct going on inside the workplace and it's not been addressed. Those are internal risk factors. And then you need to intervene. So recognize, respond, and intervene. Do you have any questions? Any questions? Well, you should have picked some frequently asked questions we've had since we started the training, so please read over those. If you have any questions, please contact Tony and myself. We'll be available to answer your questions. Thank you very much. Now, Tony will do the second part of the presentation, which is Administrative Policy 3-21. Thank you.
Okay. How's everybody doing? I'm gonna wake you up now. I'm kind of the realest guy. I move around a lot, and it's almost impossible for you to sit up here and go to sleep on me, because I'm gonna come up on you. What I want you to do today is understand that Constance gave you the first portion of this, and her portion was to tell you the definition and how to identify those things that happen in the work environment. Then give you awareness on those behaviors such as physical, psychological, and verbal that precede a workplace violence situation. My job today is to let you know how to recognize and respond appropriately to those acts of workplace violence. Then, as a supervisor or manager, prevent it and prevent those potentials for workplace violence in the workplace. I'm going to show you a little video called Calm Before the Storm. Inside that video, if you look on your 3-21, they talk about threat assessment team. It's going to give you a good idea what a threat assessment team is. It's comprised of legal, EAP, your first line supervisor, HR, general services, and security to help you minimize or to mitigate workplace violence.
Dealing with workplace violence is like preparing for a storm. You can choose to address the potential problem or deny it even exists.
A potentially violent employee is usually argumentative, does not cooperate with others, has a tendency to be a loner, does not accept authority well, and frequently blames others for his or her problems. This person's whole reason for existing and self-esteem is dependent on the job. Specifically, verbal threats, such as, if I'm fired, we'll be held to pay, or I won't be the only one leaving this place. A history of violence is often a good indicator of future violence.
You should take them out in the back and nobody away can.
There are 3 reasons why employers should have violence prevention programs. Number 1 is just the threat of lawsuits. We recently saw a case that settled for more than $10 million. Lots of lawsuits.
First, find out if there have been any incidents of violence of any kind in the past. Examine those situations. How were they handled? How should they have been handled? Team members selected from various departments could provide unique solutions. The team could be comprised of participants from security, safety, human resources, outside licensed counseling or employee assistance, the legal department, and especially frontline employees. The team's primary function is to develop and implement policies regarding threats. A direct threat: I'll pay him back, I'll get even with him. A hidden or veiled threat: this place would be shut down for days if the mainframe crashed and the backup were damaged. A conditional threat: if I'm fired, there'll be help to pay.
Mitch just keeps pushing us to do more.
Okay, well, you'll get around to it.
He's got to stop pushing me. Or I'll push him. I'll push him when he's not looking.
The team decides to do a background check on David, and the legal representative goes over the various implications of different responses. Meanwhile, the security officer decides to keep an eye on David, and both the mental health professional and the threat manager will meet with him immediately. In meeting with David, they discover that his wife has just filed for divorce. David confesses he's stressed out over her, hasn't been sleeping much, and feels extremely overworked.
I've been pushed from both sides. I've been hurting a lot lately, and I just thought, why shouldn't somebody else be hurting too?
But you know we can't tolerate threats of any kind.
Whether you make the threats to Mitch or not's beside the point, Dave. We're going to have to act accordingly.
As a disciplinary action, I'm going to ask that you take the rest of the day off. I'll call and I'll let you know when we can meet and discuss any further action.
They determine that David is probably not an immediate threat, but counseling should be a condition for continued employment.
Whether or not the storm takes planning, the most successful plan is in place before it's needed.
Okay. In that video, it said a couple of things in there. A plan. You got to have a plan. You definitely have to have a plan. Now, I'm not saying it constant. I always say a constant this. She give you contextual stuff that we go in the work environment, give you the policy. I'm the type of guy going to come in and tell you the realest, the real part of it, real life stuff, what you do every day based on your culture. And I can tell you that in the video, it said the number one reason why we need to have a workplace violence policy is what? Anybody remember what it said in the video? One of the number one things is the issue. Lawsuits. There you go. It's all about the money. The city of Houston is no longer at exposure level because they have written a workplace violent policy now. Now that exposure level is still there, but it's moved, it's shifted to another party within the city of Houston. Anybody know who that party is? Boy, they popping. They popping. Supervisors and managers. Now the exposure level is on you. Now, I'm not going to ask you to change what you do each and every day. Some of you probably been managers and leaders for years, and your people trust you and work well with you. So all I'm asking you to do is articulate this policy and be able to keep money in your pocket. Because if it goes south and it's on TV, on the news, the first thing they look for when something goes bad is how a person was trained. Once you've been trained, you're liable. Now, the policy has a lot of ambiguity in it. And I'm not watering it down. I'm not trying to tell you it's not effective. You can't write everything in a policy. But the effectiveness of a supervisor and manager and director will fill those gaps. I will tell you that if you know your people trust you, this is gravy. You don't have no problem. Because you know that person mentality, you know their attitudes, their emotions, you know how they are. You know them. So that's not a problem. Now, if you're one of them managers or supervisors that like to talk to people wrong, treat them bad, abusing your power, you got issues. You're going to reap what you sow. Now, Constance gave you a couple statistics. And I'm going to just be real with you. I want you to understand that people in the mindset of say, well, that's not going to happen to me, no big deal. Okay, those days are gone. She gave you 11% of the people committing these crimes are coworkers, former co-workers, and customers. That means they're in your building. You see them every day. 15% of the victims that happen to this are you, managers, supervisors, and directors. That beheading that happened 4 weeks ago in Oklahoma, that manager terminated that employee. That employee came back and beheaded her. You can't imagine that. That means that person felt some aggression towards that person. 55% of the people leave their job for what? Anybody know? Managers. Can't stand my manager. I'm so sick of my manager. Each and every day, you got to be conscious of how you interact with your people. And typically and always, there are indicators. Always. We used to talk about it as in Denver or as in Butte, Montana or Seattle or all that. It's right here now. Ben Todd, 2 weeks ago. The gentleman came to work, went inside the pharmacy, shot her in the back, and then shot himself. They were dead. The news said that the people told them that he asked her to go out and rebuffed her. So what does that just say? Everybody knew that there was something about that person. And right now, I want you to picture in your mind, you know you got that troubled child. You know you got that troubled child that's most likely to curse you out, most likely to come into work late. Those are the people you need to keep in mind. I'm not saying they're all going to be that way, but you know that individual. We're in a mindset in the city, in our culture in this time and age, well, it ain't none of my business, I'm going to mind my business. I ain't going to worry about it. As long as it ain't me, we're good to go. This policy says now that there's an exposure level on you that you need to be able to articulate. That's all I'm asking you to do. And I like to read the policy verbatim because I don't want any mistakes on it. This is from 3-21, Section 2. The city shall use reasonable legal, managerial, administrative, and disciplinary procedures to secure the workplace from violence and to reasonably protect employees and members of the public. Any unlawful action committed by an employee, member of the employee family, or member of the public while on city property or while using city facilities may also be subject to criminal prosecution. Who's going to give that individual, that employee, a PID? Who's going to give it to them? Supervisor. Who's going to tell them they were late today? The HERE program says that you need to meet with them how many times out of the year? Twice. Yeah, great. When it goes south, people, that's what's going to be brought up in the courtroom. You got to know that. And when you don't know that, there's two situations that's going to happen from a legality standpoint. Litigation. The city of Houston will provide you an attorney. Go in there and y'all can rock and roll. But if the city of Houston tell you, we got an attorney, I think you might need to go get you an attorney too. That means you messed up. And they about to drive over you, they're going to throw you under the bus. That's just the way it is. That's real world. And if you don't articulate this policy, that's what's going to happen. Because when it becomes national news or local news, you know, somebody got to be held accountable. That's just the nature of the beast. And it's been shifted. It says managerial, administrative, and disciplinary. They talking about us. If you got employees, they talking about you. I have employees under me, they talking about me. Now, I ask this question in every class. Communication is 93% what? I know you know because me and you talked about it. Who said that? Nonverbal. Who said that? I can't see. Nonverbal. Exactly. Now, sir, what's your name? John Young. John Young. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to tell me I'm fired.
You're fired.
How do you feel about that? What's going to happen there? Should you be there when I come back? Because I'm coming back. You know that, right? I am coming back. Right? Okay, do me a favor. You tell me I'm fired.
Mr. Cross, you're fired.
Okay. All right, then. Oh, I know how you will handle it. I already know. I already know. But those are indicators. Look, people, we've become too desensitized in America. If, from a termination standpoint, you expect this kind of behavior. I'm fired. Oh, Lord, I'm fired. Oh, Lord, give me my check. I want my check right now. You ready for that. You just call security, move them out the door. But if I say to you, okay, then, that's out of the norm. Those are indicators what you're talking about, especially if you should know your individual. You should know that individual. Secondly, I want you to understand, this is talking about real world stuff. As managers, supervisors, and directors, your people know you. If I tell you I'm your boss, I say, let me see you in my office. What's your first thought? It ain't good. Something wrong. Now, I'm going to ask you, if you ask me that, why we can't do it right here? I don't want to go in there. Let's go to the break room or something. You have to understand your position. And here's what a lot of people take for granted. Your employees may be scared of you. Have you ever heard that they don't tell you stuff? You're not approachable. You find out from one of their buddies what's going on. That means they're afraid of you. That means that you are not approachable. They don't feel comfortable. And in workplace violence, it's simply a situation where they talked about all this stuff about at night, you have divorce, can't see their child, lost their job, can't pay light bills, can't do this, can't do that. That's pressure. And then to come to work the next day and have to deal with the old big head boss, I mean, that's hard. That's pressure. I have no outlet. And they get to that one situation, you say something to them wrong, and they just go off. In every workplace violence situation, they always tell you, everybody that get interviewed say, yeah, he started acting real strange the last couple of weeks, or she was very quiet. Those are indicators. But we just say, nah, it ain't none of my business. I got too much work to do. We have to pay attention to that. I'm going to give it to you. This is the hot one, 6-3. I always want to talk about this, and always a lot of people ask me questions about it. I'm going to give it to you verbatim, then we'll talk about it. If there is a reasonable suspicion that an employee may be carrying a prohibited weapon in the workplace, that employee may be asked by a supervisor to submit to a voluntary search. The city has the right to lockers, desks, city vehicles, containers, personal toolboxes, lunch boxes, briefcases, handbags, tote bags, and other personal bags. Failure to allow a search upon reasonable request or a supervisor's confirmation of the presence of an unauthorized weapon following a search will subject that employee to disciplinary action up to and including indefinite suspension and termination. Anybody want to talk about reasonable request and voluntary search? Because this policy now is asking you to do stuff that you normally don't do. How many people in this room normally do searches with their people? And I need to search your bag. How many people do that? This policy is telling us that you're authorized to do that now, which also means that you need to articulate that if a complaint comes to you that he or she has a weapon, you need to do the appropriate thing. Now again, I don't want you to go out your comfort zone. How many people, real world, if I say there's a gun over there, you're going to go get up and go find out? How many people are going to do that? Very few. Now, I'm retired Army. A couple of people are used to being in the military or police or very active. Going to check on a weapon may not be an issue. If I don't see the weapon, I'm fine. I know I can do something about it. But if it's out, I don't think I want to talk to you. You might be looking for somebody. Okay, so I'm going to tell you how to approach that situation. Your employee, an employee of yours, or someone comes to you and says, so-and-so got a weapon. You don't want to go do any type of searching. The policy, when we get into Section 8, incident management tells you secure the scene, secure the environment, move everybody to a safe place, including yourself, isolate that individual, tell that individual to stay there, or if the person doesn't stay there, just let them keep moving where they're going. You call building security. If you have building security, call your first line supervisor, the director, call everybody. Call everybody. And if you are very sure that it's a weapon involved, call 911. Now, when you call 911, because I used to work there, you need to have specific things to tell them because of priorities. You need to know, they're going to ask you, that person has a weapon? What kind of weapon is it? What's the description of that person? What direction are they going? Does that person seem to have mental issues? And if you can't really answer all those questions, it becomes a priority issue because police officers dealing with other stuff down the road. Didn't you just see the news yesterday? The young lady got shot by a pellet gun, and she was upset because police just started running and driving over there. That's a priority. They said it was a pellet gun. They went, oh, okay, everything's fine. That's real world. We got to take the policy, articulate it to keep money in our pocket and move on. That's all I'm asking you to do. Now, if you know your employee Like I said before, you be good with your employees. It's a simple thing of, man, I know you ain't bring no weapon up here today. They say, yeah, I forgot to take it out. Man, take that thing home. Now, this is what I use practice, 3x5 cards. 5 to 10 seconds. I put his name, I put the date, I put his employee number. I spoke to him about a handgun. He did not take it out and brandish it all over the place. I document it, I throw it in a folder, I'm done with it. 5, 10 seconds. I do that with everything I do with employees, because at the end of the year, I got to do a HERE plan. I have to be searching about incidents or stuff happen, because little stuff we forget. And then we want to wait till the end of the year when they have ticked us off, and that whole HERE ain't nothing about that last incident. Have all those in there. You got a full array of what happened the entire year. 2 things there. One, when you talk to the employee is going to say, man, that person got a good memory. That person care about me, because they remembered all that stuff. You ain't got to give me your tricks. But at the end of the day, if a person knows you care, they're less likely to do anything to you. Okay, I talked about voluntary search. Everybody comfortable with voluntary search? We need to move on. Yes, sir.
Out there mentioning a city vehicle, what if it's a personal car, but it's in the city property?
Okay. Remember where it says earlier? City facilities on city property. As a manager or supervisor, I'm glad you asked that question. At the end of the day, I'm asking you to articulate the policy, CYAU, and keep everybody happy. You don't want to go into people's personal property if you don't have to. That's when we get into the word reasonable. One thing I'm going to ask about that scenario is, or any scenario like that, is that how you find out this person may have a weapon in their car. State of Texas, it's Texas. We love our weapons. State of Texas says you can have a handgun in your car. State of Texas did. Now, we got 2 situations there that I want you to be very careful with from a legality standpoint. The City of Houston, Municipal Code 14-184 says that unless you are a police officer or somebody performing duties that require a weapon, you're not authorized to have a weapon on city property. That's Municipal Code 14-184. Gray area here. If you got a concealed handgun permit, and we happen to live in the state of Texas, that weapon in their car is what? Legal. So what's the caveat to that? You need to have a real good reason why you're going into their car to check this out. And that's very easy. I mean, that makes it easy. Now, if it comes to your attention and your employee has that weapon in their car, first of all, I have a conversation with them again, 3x5 card. If they haven't been brandishing it all over the place, acting crazy with it, da-da-da-da-da, hey, look, you need to leave that in the car. Be careful who you let get in your car and who you let see that weapon, first of all. You tell them that. You document that. You look good documenting that at the end of the day, so if he or she do go off, you had that conversation. Okay? I would also tell them, whether they want to hear it or not, you are aware that the city has a municipal code, 14-184. You're not supposed to da-da-da. Don't even get in an argument about this Texas and I'm authorized to carry my gat. Don't get into all that. Don't get into all that. You do what you need to do to cover you. Leave that weapon in your car. Now, I'm going to ask this question. What is the purpose of having a concealed handgun permit if I'm walking around every day? You know I got a concealed handgun permit, right? That kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? It's a concealed handgun permit. I'm not supposed to know you got a concealed handgun. That's the whole key. Now, an individual that has a concealed handgun should know the law and the license of it. Buildings, there are particular buildings that they're not authorized to bring that weapon in. Healthcare facilities, educational facilities, courtrooms. We just heard about a courtroom thing that happened the other day. So, did I answer your question, sir? Cool, good. Anybody else? You good? You sure? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I have a concealed handgun and took the class, and it hasn't been that long ago. And if I understand correctly, a parking lot of a city facility or any government facility is not the facility itself. So even though it is illegal for me to take a handgun into a court, it is not illegal for me to have a handgun in my vehicle in the parking lot of that court.
Okay, you said court and you're saying city facilities.
Yeah,
you got two different things going on here.
And I'm saying that the analogy that they made was that a parking lot is not considered a violation. That it is legal to have it in a parking lot because that's not considered a building. And so what I'm asking you is, this seems to be the big gray area with the city of Houston, is the state of Texas says you can legally have it in a parking lot of a government facility, but you can't have it in the building. But the city of Houston seems to be saying you can't have it in the parking lot. Is that true, or am I not reading that correctly?
I love this. I ain't getting into that. Let me tell you why. As a manager, I want y'all to hear me. I said I want you to articulate this policy and know how to CYAU. Nothing you said, sir, was wrong. But I'm going to ask this question. Legal wrote it and they didn't address it. Why do you think they didn't address it? Because it's a gray area. I'm not going to take your First Amendment rights from you, but I'm telling you I don't want it on my property because it's a legality issue and you go off, we got to pay $10 million.
Okay, I have one other question. If an employee comes to me and says, you know, John Doe has got a concealed handgun permit, but he keeps his gun in his car, is there any obligation on me?
Yes. I'm old school, y'all. First of all, mama said, first of all, quit snitching. First of all, why do you care if they got a concealed handgun permit? One, I'm going to tell that individual that. Two, because they brought it to your attention. Take care of business, and I will go a step further. You got a concealed handgun? So-and-so told me you got a concealed handgun. Yeah, I'm gonna put that out there because I want to end that. Again, I just said earlier, watch who you let in your vehicle or tell them what you got. They doing this. Hey, watch what you're doing. And they have a conversation. You got to be very careful of that because the person got a concealed handgun permit. Now they get mad because so-and-so done told. So, but you have to CYAU. In essence, as managers, supervisors, and directors, you represent the city of Houston. Look at yourself as attorneys or ambassadors of the city. When you don't appropriately do that right, you're not representing the city of Houston well. So they have to get another attorney, per se, because you didn't follow the policy. So that was a great question. There's so much gray area. What I can say to you as a manager, I would tell you this. They're not out here doing this and all that crazy stuff with that weapon that justify me telling you to do something with it. Ain't none of my business. Ain't none of my business. Now, I would say this, now that you're having this training, because you have that knowledge, I'd have a meeting with all my people. Hey, all y'all gunslingers in here that got y'all weapons, leave them in the car. If you have a concealed handgun permit, don't tell anybody you got a concealed handgun permit. And I will document I had that conversation, and I'll move on. Anybody? Cool. All right. We talked about 60. We already talked about that. Okay, Section 8, incident management. Now, we just talked about searches and all that other stuff. If physical harm associated with workplace violence occurs or appears imminent, immediately retreat to safety. Now, we talked about that earlier. Searching someone, you don't feel comfortable with that. So I had a gentleman in the last class say, I said they don't pay me enough money to be going running around here searching y'all and I'm gonna get shot. That's not what the policy says. The policy just puts the liability or the accountability on you. I'm asking you to articulate it. No, it does not tell you you need to go do all that stuff. It does tell you, or I'm telling you, learn how to document, articulate the policy. I've moved everybody to a safe area because my gut told me something ain't right. Move it out the way. She said that he had a weapon. I wrote it down, I checked it out, and I moved on. Protecting people and initiated containment or intervention measures to safeguard coworkers and or the public by calling building security, because you don't have to do the search, or in the event of emergency, call 911. Now, once somebody put their hands on, that is a criminal act now. Now, I said that we are desensitized in the state of Texas. I'm sorry, in the world. Can I touch you, sir? Because you're a big dude. I don't want you to jump on me. All right. What is this right here? Yeah, it is poking. Who said assault? It's assault. It is assault. Understand that. That is assault. Now, I'm going to be real. All the other classes done jumped to it. I think they've been talking about it. Okay. You're my boss. No. You're my boss. Okay? He goes to you. No, I don't want that scenario. I don't want that scenario. Come on with it. Good. I poked on him. He goes to you and tells you he want to file assault on me. You're looking at him. What would you do, real world? Real world. That's a new one. That's a new one. But it goes along in line to what I'm saying. I would probably say, I'm going to tell you I'm telling you real, because that's the way we were raised. If he came to me and told me he want to file assault on you, I would probably say, come on, man. Come on, really? Really? Look at you. You all bumped up. Come on. I mean, that's real world. I'm talking about people just pass by stuff that sound petty. But if I poked on her and came to you, look at everybody say, oh, yeah, what's going to happen? In another class, the guy said, oh, that's real assault there. But real, people. Isn't that real world? That's real world. I'm not going to tell you nothing different. That's real world because of our perceptions, the way we treat gender, stereotypes. You have to be conscious of that. Two guys having a conversation, poking back and forth, oh, man, ain't no big deal. But if I poke her, oh, man, that's real. Ooh, Lord, we got to do something about that. Different. Even if she poked me and I came to you. Really, man? Really? I'm being real. It's a double standard. Understand that. Because we get into third-party reporting. She poked me. He saw it. He can report it. And if he saw a manager or supervisor didn't do anything about it, guess what? You're in trouble. I just want you to be aware of that. I want to give you real stuff to be able to understand it. Handle everybody the same. Yes, ma'am.
That's what I was going to say. Anytime somebody reports something that I consider it to be a really situation, a real situation, I do the same thing. It will be documented and we will follow proper protocol.
That's the best way. If you don't get anything out of this class other than this, I'm all about CYA. You have to do that first. You have to do that first. Okay. I have another video to show you, and it's called Workplace Violence Scenario, and Constance gave you the prerequisites, behaviors that precede certain situations in workplace violence. What I want you to do is look at it, and you tell me from both sides' perspectives what you saw wrong with it. We're almost done, too. No, I didn't. Okay, there we go.
Take half of my money. I'm the one who worked for it. I'm a lawyer. Do something about it. She's in the house too? What are you, blind? Hey, this is my parking space.
Come on, Mark, I got here before you did.
Mark, there are plenty of other parking spaces back there. Mind your own business. This is between me and her.
That's right.
Look, you saw me use a turn signal.
It's ridiculous to get upset over a parking space.
Now you can shoot both of them.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, Lee.
Hey.
Good morning. Well, good luck at that presentation today.
Have a good day.
So what is eating Mark? He's one of the nicer guys around here.
I don't know. He's been really difficult to work with lately. The other day in a meeting, I heard he left in a huff, and last week at lunch, okay, I saw it. He totally flipped out because the waitress got his order wrong.
Well, I heard he was going through a really messy divorce.
Oh, that's no reason to threaten your coworker, you know? We should go to HR.
I really don't want to do that. I don't want to spend all morning at HR. Hi.
Hey.
I heard about what happened in the parking garage. Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just not a great way to start your morning.
Okay.
How did you hear?
Office gossip. But don't worry, I will take care of it. Okay?
Thank you. No problem.
Gotcha.
All right, see you.
See you.
Bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks.
You wanted to see me?
Yeah, please have a seat.
I'll stand.
Would you mind closing the door, please? Mark, I heard about the incident today in the parking garage. I have to tell you, there have been some consistent complaints about your aggressive behavior, and that type of behavior is not acceptable here. Do you understand? I also need to speak with you about your performance lately. Your work quality has been very poor, and we've decided that we need to place you on a probationary period of 1 month. We'll be evaluating you weekly, and at the end of that period, if we don't see some significant improvement, then there will be some serious consequences.
Yeah,
Mark, you could lose your job over this.
Fine.
Do you want to discuss this further? I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
No. Are we done yet?
Yes, we're done.
He was just going to the gym. Okay, let me ask this question. What was wrong in that video? What was done wrong in that video? A lot of stuff. Somebody said a lot of stuff. Like what? Somebody. Should have been alone with him. That's exactly what Constance was talking about. She was in the wrong position. Right. He blocked the door. Yes, sir. Piled on him. Exactly right. But let's, and I like that you say that. That is actually true. Yes, sir. Yeah. Right. This is awesome. Let me tell you why this is awesome. But I also take into consideration that typically when we're in a classroom, we can say the right stuff. We can. It's easy. I always like to say, and I'm not saying you're not right, I'm not saying that that's not what you do. What I'm simply saying is we have, what's the word you use? At-risk. At-risk people. Problem kids, that I like to say. The ones get on your nerves. The ones that won't shut their mouth when you're talking to them. They keep running their mouth. The ones you don't want to deal with on a daily basis. That's the type of scenario, real world. You don't deal with that individual that you don't want to see every day all the time. You don't want to deal with them. I'm not justifying the pile on. It should not happen. And that's a perfect example of that. Y'all said it right. When stuff happens, you need to address it. But you and I both know, if you know your culture, that does not always happen. That person does something, you don't worry about it. I'll get to it. And you end up piling on. And then they do something so elevated, you got to bring them in the office. And your mindset now is, well, I got him here. I might as well let him. Last week he was messing up. By the way, I ain't never want you here anyway. So keep it up. I'm going to fire you. Now, that word, I've been taught for a while since I've been in the work environment outside the Army. I mean, the Army, I can tell you exactly how I feel. But in corporate America, you can't use the terms, this is your job. That was threatening. You know, you can be fired for this. Although it's true, you got to understand how that person responds to that. If you're telling me it's my job, he might or she might click and say, well, if I'm going to get fired anyway, I might as well do what I need to do. Exactly. It's kind of like when you was growing up, you stayed out late. Well, I'm already out. I'm already going to get a whooping. So I might as well just go on and have a good time. Those are little indicators. Life is the same way. As managers and supervisors. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I was perturbed that she didn't call security when he left because he was visibly angry.
You was perturbed. You was perturbed. You ain't like that. I hear you. Managers and supervisors in this room. I'm asking you because I'm gonna flip the script on you. If an employee come in your office and you tell him to sit down, and he tell you, no, I stand, what would you do?
I'm going to talk to him.
Let me get her, huh?
I personally, if an employee came in and they told me that I asked them to sit down and they wanted to sit down, I would stand and move myself in a position to the door. That's what I would do.
Okay.
That's what I would do. And then I would, try to have a dialogue with him. And if I see that, by talking to them or listening to them, that will soften them,
Yeah.
I will continue. If not, I'll say, well, we can't have a discussion right now. Maybe we can talk about this later.
Good one. Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I had all of that happen. He didn't want to sit down, and he said, are we through? Then I brought in the assistant manager.
Cool. Good. That's excellent.
And we dealt with it in that way because he was angry, and he was not willing to receive.
Okay. Now, that's real world as managers and supervisors. Look, most of us, if not all of us, have kids, nephews, nieces, aunts, and uncles, and we have that sense of authority. Let's just be real. I bring you in my office and I tell you to have a seat. I'm just being real mean. Didn't you just hear what I said? Can you have a seat, please? You can shift right into that dialogue so quick. Then there's a response to that afterwards. I'm not saying you do it. I'm simply saying it's that fast with emotions. These real emotions here, especially how their mannerisms are. I ain't sitting nowhere. Your mind go, what you say? And you got to come back. Really? Yeah. I like what you just said. Typically, if you know your employees, you know what? How about let's go for a walk? Let's go walk this out and talk. Now, if he can't be diffused, we need to end this conversation. We need to come back later and meet, and we'll talk to you later. Now, I'm going to document that. You were so heated up, we couldn't talk. You need to document that, okay? Because then at the end of the day, again, like mom and dad, I'm going to whoop you when I get home. It's still coming. If I tell you to come back later, it's still coming. So you got to understand that. You got to keep that in mind. Document, document, document.
Tony, one of the things that I do, I teach my managers, is that when you're going to tell an employee something negative, the person already knows that they did it.
Right.
I always go back and tell, even my personal employees, we need to talk later on this afternoon. What's a good time for you? I'm putting you on notice. I want to talk to you, and you know what I'm talking about. You're not stupid. So by the time we get around to that conversation, there's nothing new to you.
Right.
Right. You're not surprised. And it seems to work better for me than just to come back and off. I want to talk to you. And I'm never going to tell the employee I'm going to fire them.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that power. I don't have the power to fire. Yeah, I tell manager, don't
Yes, yes. What I want you to understand in this conversation and the dialogue, I really encourage this dialogue because I am about being real and being successful with this. We can sugarcoat this stuff, and then the situation happens, then you're trying to find that policy. So I want to address all those caveats, all those things that we deal with every day, because we deal with people every day. And again, your manager and supervisor in here, you have done it before. I'm not giving you new stuff. I'm not telling you to move out your comfort zone and stop doing what you're doing. But follow the policy and articulate it to save you and the department and the city of Houston. Now, any violation that's reported to a manager or supervisor, they must act appropriately and discreetly and handle it with appropriate actions. Please do that. Again, you have section 8-5 that says anyone who observes that can report it. And if you don't report it, you'll mess around and go on the carpet and being told, well, yesterday such and such happened and you didn't do anything about it. You standing there going, I wonder who told. Who told you? No, this ain't the time to find out who told. Okay. Again, if it's a criminal act, you call 911. Have the necessary information they have. If you don't practice something, we used to say in the Army, you train as you fight. If you don't do stuff now, when it's time to do it, you won't be able to. You got to have muscle memory. You got to at least go through it in your mind what you're going to do if this happens. And one of the things Constant always tells me to say, let me say this, a person at risk, someone should have said to that person, what can I do to help you? You seem to be very upset that something must be going on with you because you know this individual. This is not like you. And in that video, that's basically, they've been talking about he did this, he did this, he did this, but nobody did anything to him. To help him, exactly. Compliance is mandatory. Employees will not suffer adverse consequences for making a complaint. Supervisors and managers must immediately report policy violations. False reporting or failure to report violations may result in disciplinary action. Do not be the type of leader like that captain on the cruise ship that wrecked that cruise ship, got out, went home, he was in his house, and everybody was still trying to be rescued. Don't be that type of leader. Practice what you preach. Lead by example. Now, we get ready to wind this down. I'm going to end it with 7 tips that, and if you want those 7 tips, you can come up here and sign this sheet of paper and say, send me those 7 tips on email. The 7 tips kind of highlight what the policy is telling you, just in 7 tips. It's going to tell you that. I will always tell you, if your gut say something wrong, our intellect go, nah, don't worry about it. I ain't gonna worry about it. Always go with your gut. At least listen to your gut. It's called informed thinking. All right, we are almost there. Did I do it wrong? Okay. And I want to say this. The reason why we have to go through this video concept, it wouldn't play inside.
I've got to reschedule because of your screw-up. I have an appointment now, and I'm going in now. Mr. Ward, I'm going to kill you.
Workplace violence is a serious safety issue. Some 2 million American workers are victims of workplace violence each year. It can surface in the form of verbal threats or even physical assaults. But no matter how workplace violence manifests itself, it is undoubtedly a growing concern for employers and employees alike. Here are 7 tips to prevent workplace violence. Assess your work environment. Critically examine all areas of your work environment, including parking lots, entryways, reception areas, work areas, and offices. Is the lighting adequate? Are there convenient escape routes? Do you have a method to summon assistance? Pay attention to the warning signs. Many people who become violent communicate their intentions in advance. Threats from customers, coworkers, or third parties should be reported immediately. Promote respect. The best way to prevent violence in the workplace
is to foster a day-to-day attitude of respect and consideration in your work environment. Eliminate potential weapons. Take a mental inventory of objects available in your immediate work area that could be potential weapons. Remove or secure objects that could be thrown. Know your violence response procedures. Violence response procedures are simple plans designed to minimize injury during a violent incident. These procedures should include a plan to summon assistance and move people to a safe area. Trust your instincts. Don't ignore your internal warning system. If you sense impending danger, react accordingly. Use a team approach. If you are in a situation where hostility could occur, use the buddy system.
Okay. I want to. Huh? You give them. Okay, good. I want to highlight these. The 7. It talks about everything that we just talked about in 3-21. Assess your environment. You know your environment better than anybody. You know those dark areas where you tell your employees don't park over there, don't go over there. You know the parts of the building that they shouldn't be involved in. Pay attention to the warning signs. That's knowing your people. If you know that person's mannerisms are jovial and outgoing, and the next thing you know, they're coming into work all depressed and reserved. Pay attention to warning signs. And like I said before, if you treat your people well, promote respect, not going to have a problem. This whole policy will be just gravy to you. It's an easy process. Eliminate potential weapons. I would say you do that on your own. You walk in the building, you see some sharp items laying on the floor. I don't think you're going to see any handguns laying anywhere, but potential items like long wooden bats and stuff like that, axes and stuff like that. Know your violence response. Know 3-21. You know that. We just discussed that. I talked about this earlier. Trust your instincts. Trust your gut. Because your gut always tell you. If you go into it, nowadays, since stuff is happening, if you go into a movie theater and you see somebody walking in there with a backpack, what you going to do? It just seems to be odd. If it's July, 112 degrees, and you have a guy coming in with a big coat on, something's telling you something. You walk by people every day and something says, something up with that person. Or you go in the store, I know I've done it, I've experienced it. You ever experienced, you look at somebody and you say, that person get ready to steal. Your gut tells you that. And then finally, use team approach, where it talks about containment, imminent, go to a safe area, get other people involved, call your supervisor, call building security, then call 911. That's the team approach. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been great. We had a good time. We went over just a little bit. If you have any questions, we can wait after this and we can talk about it. If you want this 7 tips, you can write it down. Constance is going to tell you the contact number for EAP. You can put your evaluations on the table outside, or you can put it on this table here.